welcome everybody. Welcome. Thank you guys for bearing with me. And I thank you guys for viewing. I see there are some people watching already. Welcome. Thank y'all for checking us out. I'm really excited. About this episode. This is going to be an amazing episode, season 3, episode 3 of the My Brother show. I am your host, Maurice Rush. As you guys can see, I am growing my hair back. Look at that. Look at that hairline right there. For everybody who said I was bald, I got a whole hairline today. Man, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it, but it's there right now. Bobs was good, my bro. I love you, man. Real life supporter right there. Welcome everybody. Today we're talking about pride, right? So last month we did lust. This month we're doing pride. We're gonna talk about how that affects us, and pride is often described as the original sin, or the original vice, or the kind of like the one that leads to the other six. So I'm really excited to dig deep into this one. I have some amazing brothers to join me. Before I get there, of course, I have my housekeeping. First and foremost, follow us on Instagram. You see it scrolling down at the bottom at the My Brother show. Just look it up on Instagram. Follow us to stay in tune with the show. Also, if you want to support anything that we're doing here with the show, any donations could be sent to $ my brother. Like I said, last episode, my tripod just broke. So that's probably where funds will go to. And my headphones are broken as well. You can't see them, but they're a little broken. So those are two big things that donations will go to right now. All right. Without further ado, I'm not going to ramble too much. I'm going to go and introduce my guest. First, this guy is no stranger to the show. He's no stranger to my life. He is my brother. He is an amazing individual. We share the same mom and the same dad. He is returning for the second time. He yelled at me last season because I had a guest come on 4 or 5, and he said, "Man, I can't get a repeat." So, without further ado, I get the opportunity to introduce the man, the legend, the myth, the future father, Jameel Rush.
Listen, man, I'm just trying to catch up to WAP numbers. What have you been at? So 47 times? That's all I'm trying to get to, man.
I got some haters in the comments already. I'm the best Rush brother. Oh, two of them. Y'all hate me. Y'all can't hate me on my own show. Give me some love. Oh man, but Mil, I'm really glad you could join me, man. We're gonna have some real fun this episode. Oh, look at that. You're getting meal.
It's the family. It's good to be amongst family.
So this is great. Secondly, I know if you guys have been following the flyers, you saw I have been advertising Herb as the other guest. He had another obligation come up pretty late today, so I made a last minute audible, and I called another one of my brothers. Known this guy forever, man. He was my youth pastor at some point in life, and then we went from the youth pastor to mentee relationship to the brother relationship. I'm very honored to have his friendship. I'm very honored to have him a part of my life, and I'm very honored that he could join the show. So without further ado, I introduce the one, the only, Kevin Ruff.
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, Mill? What's up, Reese?
How you feeling, bro?
Hopefully, the audience isn't disappointed that Herb isn't here, but there's really nothing we can do about that right now. So let's try to make the best of the opportunity.
Oh man, this is great. They love Mill in the audience, Kev. You ain't get nearly as much love as Mill, but it's hard to do that.
Listen, Mill is Mill. He's in a category all by himself. So I'm not even going to hate. I'm just happy to be affiliated with him. And right now, actually, I'm gonna screenshot this. Let me take a picture. I know him. There we go.
I've been in the audience for Kev too many times.
All right, we can continue. Don't talk about that. Yeah.
Kevin, one day Kevin was preaching somewhere, and we said, "Hey, Kev, how'd the sermon go?" He said, "I preach." They shouted.
We're not doing that. Oh my gosh. Well, we have elevated in the church life now. So the new mantra is, I asked and they gave. Praise God. Amen.
Hallelujah. All right,
Just
guys.
kidding, guys.
Let's go ahead and jump into the discussion, guys. I really want to dig into this pride because I think, like I said in the intro, pride is probably the biggest thing that men struggle with, right? And it's probably not talked about as much as it should be. So let's just start off with the definition of pride. So whichever one of you guys want to jump in, go ahead and define what pride is.
Anointed most first.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to your lovely wife, Mill. She continues to encourage me to let me know I was your favorite groomsman, or at least her favorite groomsman of yours. So yeah, that's very special to me. But man, Reese, this is a really good topic. I think definitely necessary to talk about. I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Should I take out these AirPods?
I'm not hearing.
Yeah, I'll just keep going. But yeah, I was thinking about this. I'm going to take these out because it's not working out. Okay. It's still there. There's like a bunch of.
I kind of hear it. It sounds like a oscillating fan or something. It might be me. My air conditioner is on.
Okay.
Try turning that on. But go ahead and define.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I was just thinking about pride, and it's funny because I was having a conversation with a mentor today, and we were just talking about like how God's been moving in my life, and he was kind of poking fun and saying like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be yours, that's going to be yours," and I just kind of went along with it, and I was like, "I'm going to own it all." And as soon as I said that, my mind immediately went to the topic for tonight of pride, and it occurred in my mind like it's a matter of stewardship, not ownership. And I think when we kind of presume to own or have ownership of certain things or aspects of our lives, I think that's when pride creeps in, right? And so stewardship, the opposite of pride is humility, or some people may say love, and we'll get into that. But humility, right? Stewardship requires humility, but if we presume to own what we have or own what we're pursuing, then there's no room for humility and there's no room for stewardship. So the idea is that God owns it all and that we are stewards over the possessions that he gives us. Otherwise, it becomes about what I can put my name on, what I can put my brand on, how I can promote my brand. And I think that's okay, right? Because even on my shameless plug here, like social media, hashtag rough draft, right? And so obviously rough is my last name. And the draft indicates that I'm going to be sharing some thoughts about, like, from my perspective, from my point of view. But I think it's only okay when our idea of our brand is based in is consistent with God's brand, right? And so God has a brand, or a brand may be a way of doing things or a way of portraying oneself. And I think when we get in touch with the image of God that's in us, and like I just thought about all this stuff, so sorry it's not clear, but I'm trying to, explain it in a way that utilizes like common day or everyday language. But when we think about like God's brand, what is God's brand? Well, God's brand is love, right? And so that's a part of his brand. So I think what we do and how we go about life, and when we think about like the possessions we have, or the possessions we want, we got to think about pursuing those with the motive of love. We are God's prized possession, and God wanted us. And so Christ died for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He demonstrated his love for us. And so I think the definition of pride is seeking to own. And that's not like in the Bible or anything, but I think the implication is there, right? Seeking to own. And I think that's what Satan did. Satan wanted to own a particular brand or image. He wanted some ownership when God said stewardship. And so that's just my idea. I didn't really have much time to think about it. But those are my thoughts so far.
Hey, I love it. I love
Thanks,
it.
man.
You gotta preach, sir.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't escape it. I try, right? I try. It's just inescapable.
Mill.
Yeah, and as I think about I think there are two pieces that you can't remove when you talk about pride, either in the biblical sense or in sort of the natural worldly sense. And those things are ego and trust. So this idea of ego and trust. And pride at its core is a vaulting up of self above and in spite of all others around it. And there's sort of this lack of trust that anyone else but you can do it well, right? Like, so I do recognize there's a thin line between confidence and overconfidence, right? So there's a level of confidence and access and power that we need to operate in, especially for those of us who are Christians and we call ourselves as according to God's name, and a power that we have in that. But when we start to vault ourselves up and we start to, believe our own narrative, right? Start buying our own stuff, then that line starts to get crossed, especially if you ignore the other skill sets and traits and things that other people do well, because you have vaulted yourself so much above reproach. So for me, it's an abundance of ego in a way that creates an absence of trust, right? Like that's what pride really shows up for me is it's an abundance of ego in a way that creates an absence of trust, in a belief in self among all other things. It's the simplest way that I can put it.
Yeah, that was good. I don't even know if I have a follow up to that. I mean, y'all excuse me if you see me pull the headphones down when I talk. I'm getting a weird echo on my end only. But I don't even know if I have a good follow up for that. That was just really good. I think Bill knocked it out the park, and Kev did as well when he said it's just that inflated sense of self worth. And there's nothing wrong with being confident. There's nothing wrong with appreciating who you are and what you bring to the table. But it's that inflated sense of like self worth. And I think to take it to the next level is also a lack of trust in others' abilities. I'm not sure where that line is, honestly, to Mill's thin line statement. Like, I don't know, because there's an inflated sense of I can do all of this myself, and I don't trust others to do it. Like, that line is something that I struggle with, and we'll get into that as the conversation progresses. But I think that that's kind of what I look at when I think of pride. And I think that we'll get into it down the road. Also, there are some good things to be, prideful about, right? So like if you worked your butt off and you got that new Tesla or you got that new job at that church or something like that, yes, you have a lot of right to be prideful about something like that. But I think that, most things in excess become harmful. So to just kind of keep the conversation moving.
Hey Reese, can I just chime in real quick? On like I thought as well what Mill said was powerful, and I couldn't help but to think about how that kind of translates to our relationships, right? When there's this inflated sense of self, this ego that's leading, it drives a barrier, it drives a wedge in our relationships, and there's a breakdown of trust, whether it's familial or romantic or professional relationships. I think pride, we heard the saying pride comes before a fall. And so, the fall of a relationship, the breakdown in relationships, I think you can trace directly back to pride and ego issues. So I appreciate you for highlighting that, Mill.
Thank you, sir.
So let's just keep transitioning in the conversation. This is really good. And just for anyone watching, Herb may join late. He said his obligation ended around 7:50 ish. So he may join a little later, but I just want to keep the conversation going. How have you guys seen pride manifest itself in the lives of men in particular? How have you seen it manifest? How have you seen it affect people's jobs and relationships and finances and families and things like that? How have you seen it?
Yeah, and I'll speak personally because I don't think it's fair to talk about others without exposing yourself first. And this idea of ego, so at least for me, where I see my pride start to show up is in this lack of confidence in being vulnerable and being transparent, right? So pride becomes the way that I overcompensate. So if I have to depend on you to get it done, then that creates a level of vulnerability. That is an admittance that I can't do it myself. So I'm like, no, you know what? I'm good enough. I got it, right? And that shows up in work at times. That shows up in life at times. Uh, Reese, I know we've spoken about, and I've watched almost all of your shows, right? And this idea of like the mental health of men in particular, we see it also emotionally, and a lack of admittance when you're hurt, of just saying like, hey, I can't deal with all these things, and this defense mechanism I have of depending on myself and vaulting myself up and saying I got it is exactly that. It's a defense mechanism. It's not actually a way out or a way of healing through. So I think particularly in the lives of men, you see this way of saying like, I'm going to do it myself, I'm going to do it myself, I'm going to do it myself, and then eventually out of habit, you teach yourself that that's the way you should be operating, versus teaching yourself that, the best of us aren't able to just do it on our own. We're able to call out for support for others, and we're able to surround ourselves from people who we need and admit that when we're in need around it. So that's how at least I see it manifest in myself. It's sort of this calling of like, no, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to run with it. I don't need you to take care of it. You know what I asked? You said no, say less, right? Like I got it. You don't even have to worry about that. And it goes back on like, I've done it before. I could do it again. And it's just like continuing this damaging and problematic and harmful narrative for ourselves that it is on us, where God has created a community and a fellowship and a church and a body, and all those things are supposed to operate together. It's really intentional in the body, in the Bible. And even if you don't believe in Christ and you're not someone who's spiritual, the need for others is evident through all of history, and every great leader has sort of depended on others. And those who have not, you've seen the fall that Kev just referenced, right? The pride coming before that fall.
Yeah, and if you didn't think you needed others in your life this last year and being locked in COVID and not being able to see your loved ones and your close family and your close friends, if you thought that you could live by yourself, like I was okay for maybe the first 2 months quarantine. I was like, this is great. I get to spend time home. By June, I was like, and in January, when they came and said, hey, you want the vaccine? I said, yes, please. Give me a vaccination because I miss being around people. I miss my family. I miss my friends. I miss my loved ones. So I wholeheartedly agree with what it is that you're saying. And I've had many instances myself. And Kev, I'll give you the floor in a second. I've had many instances myself. Just in my parenthood of my son, as everyone knows, my son has special needs. And I vividly remember when he got the diagnosis, being in the hospital room with his mother and saying to myself, she can't let me be weak. And if I can't be weak to my son in front of my son's mother, no one will see me. I got this. Like, I got this. I got it. I'll be good. And Mill, I know we got into BU and our older brother. We had a big conversation maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, I'm not okay with this. And in reflection of that conversation, I realized a lot of this is stuff that I put on myself, right? Because from the moment that Maurice got diagnosed at 18 months, I never reached out to anyone to say, hey, I am struggling with this. I always feel on this, oh, I'm good. I got it. I'm okay. No, we're cool. Oh, he's crying. No, that's fine. We'll leave. And here I am with him now being 12. And my biggest fear now is if something happened to me tomorrow and his mom tomorrow, what would his future look like? And I can't point the finger at anyone else but myself because I was too prideful over the years to train someone else on how to deal with them, to reach out and say, hey, can you, come over and watch how I, to ask people to sit with them. And that's on me. So to the question of how does pride manifest itself in your own life, that's something that I've seen directly that I have done, that I have dealt with. And I'm trying to correct the consequences, but now the boys, hitting puberty, it's getting big now. And, people are like, oh, well, I was talking to someone about a month and a half ago. And she was like, well, you look like you carry it so well. That's why no one's ever going to offer you help. And I'm like, oh, and that's kind of what sparked it. And that was just me being prideful and me thinking that I was being strong. And I say it quite often, I always thought that strength was suffering and being quiet, being able to hide your suffering, being able to operate from a sense of depression, from a sense of weakness. It wasn't until last year that I realized strength is being able to say, oh, I'm not okay. Oh, Mill, I need a night tonight, like, can you just get the guys together so I can get out? Hey, can you sit with Reese for a couple of hours? I really just need like 2 hours of silence. That's what strength looks like. The ability to say, I'm not okay, to swallow that pride and to reach out for help, to reach out for support, to open up. So, Kev, go, you take the floor.
Yeah, man, this is good. And I'm just going to continue in the vein of just kind of talking from my own personal experience of struggles with pride. I think for me, the most pronounced manifestation of pride has been my inability to kind of let go of my idea of kind of my life based on a trajectory that I had in mind that was working until it wasn't, right? And so I think when life happens and there's a clear shift, I think pride won't allow us to shift with life because, I mean, for a number of reasons. It's unfamiliar. It may be scary to venture out into something new or different. And depending on one's age, it could be really scary if one's older and they've already kind of made plans in a particular direction and now they have to shift. And we're not in control of any of that. But yeah, so pride for me has been, obviously I'm divorced now. And my idea or my vision for my own life was based in being married. And then when I was no longer married, I had to reimagine that. I had to dream about that again. But I still tried to cling to elements or aspects of the previous vision. And I was challenged, and I challenged myself to redefine that, to reimagine, to plan out a different path, obviously with God's guidance. So yeah, but I've seen detriment when I was unwilling to let go of the past, when I was unwilling to let go of certain ideas. And, and those were clear signs to me, like, okay, you're striving way too hard, Kevin. You're striving harder than you should be. You're striving harder than you really actually have the energy to be. And you're striving harder than God intends. And, so I just kind of came to a place where I needed to relinquish, even utterly abandon my preconceived ideas of what's best for me. And I had to kind of yield. I had to yield to life. I had to yield to God. I had to yield to growth. And yeah, so, pride had the potential to be a huge hindrance for me in that regard. But I'm overcoming it.
Yeah, and Mill, I remember one day we were talking and you told me about like this concept of it's like people have this, like they double down, like when you make a decision and like it's wrong, like they have like this tendency to like double down on it rather than just say, hey, I'm wrong, and it kind of gets them stuck in pursuing like this thing. I'm not explaining it as well as you can. So can you kind of like put that out, because I feel like that's a direct, like, maybe like in layman's terms, for lack of a better phrase, way to explain like pride, like that concept.
Yeah, and it's a decision making trap. So for those of you who know, I also teach part time, and one of the things that we talk about is critical thinking and what are the decision making traps that people fall in. And one of them is called sunk costs. And sunk cost says that I've invested in this concept in theory. So instead of admitting that it's not the right way to go, now I need to prove that what I've already put so much time and resources in is right. So now I'm no longer working to get to the end result. I'm working to prove my preconceived notion correct, right? And it's a decision making trap that we all fall victim to all the time. So we get into these places of like, no, I said this, so I gotta stand by it, which doesn't make sense to me. Versus like, I was wrong, right? Like my fault. Sorry about that. Versus this kind of like reiterating of trying to prove a point that you don't even believe in yourself anymore. So how do you avoid those decision making traps, and how do you make sure that you're always evaluating your decisions based on what makes the most sense versus all of the other subjective things that can come into play and get in the way for us?
And like, if that ain't prideful, I don't know what is. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not about to, get on the conversation about, the COVID vaccine and getting it and not getting it, because that's not this isn't the stage for it. But I see it a lot in conversations with people at this point, where it's like, you tell the people and they're just like, no, I'm not getting it, because, and like their excuses have changed. Like from January till now, rationales against it have changed. And I got to the point where I realized it's the sunken theory thing that Jameel was just explaining, whereas people have made this decision against it and they don't want to say, oh, I might have been wrong. And you see that in so many areas, and that's just prideful, man. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make a mistake. Like, no one was perfect but Jesus. And it's okay to say, oh yeah, I messed up. And Mel, we do it all the time while we're playing 2K. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might miss a pass. I'm like, yo, I was open.
Is it we? Is it we, or is it I? I say it a lot. I do a lot of apologizing. I don't know if it's reciprocated.
Kev, what's your thoughts on that theory?
Yeah, man. Obviously, Mill's an expert in this field, so I think my thoughts are irrelevant. But but yeah, man, it's so true. It's so true, and that there we go. And I take it back to my original thoughts about pride. We're clinging to an image or an idea or a brand that we've established and that we've invested in, and we want to promote. We want to perpetuate, and it could be to our detriment and to our demise, as opposed to just admitting like, okay, this didn't work, or this worked for a time and the season for this is over, or this was a great foundation, now I have to build on that with new ideas and new processes. But yeah, man, I think it's spot on. And I think so I'm wondering too, like, where does that come from for us, particularly in men, right? Where, like, what breeds that, right? And with the spiritual aside for a moment, like, what social kind of contributions have been made to like contribute to that, like to give to that or breed that? Like, I don't know the answer, like, I mean, somewhat, but I think it's worth exploring, because a lot of times, we'll identify a problem, but we don't identify the root. And so we end up treating the symptom instead of dealing with the root cause of our pain and of our discomfort and our distress. And so I'm just curious to hear you all's thoughts. I know I'm not the host, Reese, but I'm sorry. I'm just curious, though. What do y'all think? And maybe even in the chat, like, what do y'all think that stems from?
It's your show. It's your show, bro.
No, real quick though, still answer that question, everybody. But this is I made a shocking discovery. So like apparently the person who was writing on my birth certificate in the hospital had just poor penmanship, like smart as ever, but just poor penmanship. So instead of like on my last name putting SH, they put FF, where it appeared to be FF. So yeah, that was my joke that I had been planning all night. But anyway, go ahead. Back to the issue at hand.
You've been a Rush brother for a long time, Kev.
I have been. I have been. You guys have adopted me, man, to the royal family. I see Miss Wanda on here. She encourages me on my post on Facebook and whatnot. I appreciate y'all. I really do.
Yeah, man.
I heard you had well, never mind. That's our girl thing. But go ahead. Yeah, let's. Can we address that real quick?
Yeah. So I don't know if I can say where it stems from. I'm sure if we dig back to our childhoods, there was probably some example somewhere from some parent, teacher, or other guardian that we were left with that we felt this need to always be correct. Or it just could be like, I don't really like being wrong. Like, I don't mind apologizing, but like, you always really want to be right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really a good thing, especially, I hear Jameel tell his wife all the time, you can't be loud and wrong. And typically, when you see this behavior happen, is because you've done something that was loud, and by loud I mean visual, like rambunctious. Like people who fall for those pyramid schemes. That's probably the best example. Like you done hit everybody you know about this pyramid scheme, and probably done shot shade at them. Like, well, y'all just don't want to make no money like me. And then in like 2 months, when you're not doing it no more, it's no apology. It's just like, I'm not a millionaire, and I just threw all this shade at y'all. And so, I don't know where it stems from, but I do think that it's something worth addressing, especially if we're on the subject of pride.
And I definitely think there's, and Reese, you speak about this all the time. There's a reframing of what we think strength is that at times can be the root cause. And look, and this is not getting into history and trauma and racism and all those things, which absolutely I think come into play around what you just mentioned there, Kev. But I think for a long time we've been fooled into thinking that strength means that you sit above reproach, right? Like it means that you are the unquestioned leader and the quote unquote alpha of the group, and nobody can check you. And if they check you, they better be careful before they do it. So we've sort of fashioned this naive version of strength and vaulted it up as the epitome of manhood for some strange reason that's not biblical or healthy. And the challenge for us in this day and age, and you're starting to see people emerge to it, a lot of times at tension with their friends, family, and in some cases other generations, of like, no, strength is like, I don't need to be on all the time, right? And I don't need to be perfect, and I don't need to be loud and beating my chest and all those things. Strength for me might be vulnerability. Strength for me might be transparency. Strength for me might be crying in front of my significant other, right? Like, strength for me might be calling my friend and saying, like, I gotta talk right now. Strength for me could be saying I'm hurt, right? Like all these words that we've removed from our lexicon because of fear of what it might appear to be from others. And how do we reframe this idea of strength? Because when you remove strength being like, I sit above everybody else and I am the person who can't be questioned, to strength is I model the behaviors that I need other people to model to have healthy dynamics in the places that they are, then now you've started to remove pride from the situation, because now that's not important anymore. Like this ego piece is much less important and critical to me personally and to the places that I am and stand. And for me, that's something I'm constantly working on. You just spoke about loud and wrong. That's thank you, Wanda Rush, who's on there. My wife, I think I said it to her one time, and she flipped that real quick. So she will absolutely say that I'm stubborn in a moment, and that is true, by the way. Like I'm like, you got to prove to me why I'm wrong. But I also try to to evaluate myself too, right? And be willing to say, like, no, I'm wrong. And I say it so quick at times that I think people don't catch it. Like, no, I was wrong about that, my fault. Because I want it to be natural for me to just admit wrongdoing and to keep it pushing.
Kev, Jameel just said lexicon.
Listen, bro. Let me tell you everything I wrote down that he said. Before he said lexicon, he said naive version of strength, an epitome of manhood. And then he said strength is I model behaviors I need others to model. I mean, listen, we just are happy to sit at your feet, sir.
First off, if I got a notebook full of Kev sermons from cafes to Saturday night to guest lecturing. So don't worry, I got them on deck. Though I could call Dr. K if you want.
I don't remember the guest lecturing, but I remember the other stuff. Wow.
I do have a question from my cousin Jabril, whichever. No, that's Jabril. My fault. His brother is Jabril.
I was gonna say, is it moo moo or boo boo?
I know, but he says, what would you call a man without pride?
Yeah, and so look, I think there's oftentimes that we use pride in a way of like, oh, these are the things that I carry for myself. It's sort of a measure of what I need to be treated as. And I think that's okay too. Like you should have a standard for how people engage with you and how people treat you. So that's absolutely true. And I think Cuz is asking that question of like, how do you make sure that you have a standard of how you carry yourself and a standard for how you should be treated? The question becomes when that standard exists without evaluation, without self-awareness, which is a part of that as well. So how do you keep that standard and recognize that it shifts over time and recognize that there might be parts or rough edges that you need to smooth off, and then use that information in order to get better in the future so that that standard becomes better, not outdated. That's a key difference over time for me.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was a school teacher, I talked often with my students about producing work that they can be proud of, right? And so I think there's an element of pride that I think is okay, it's healthy, that can be motivating at times. I think a man, I guess to look at the question again, what would you call a man without pride? Society or culture might say weak, right? But I just say like I think there's a measure of pride, and by pride I don't mean the one that like comes before the fall, the one that's like totally self-absorbed, and these outcomes that I produce I'm proud of, and I did it all by myself, nobody helped me. I'm not talking about like that measure of pride. I'm just saying like using the fact that you want to produce work because you want to represent your best self. You want to represent those who have poured into you and contributed to your success. You want to represent God. But I think there's a difference between a man who doesn't have pride in the sense that we previously discussed. I think he's still a man. And a man who doesn't have the kind of pride that motivates us to be our best selves and then attribute credit to others who have helped us become our best selves. I think that kind of pride is necessary. I think it can be motivating, right? So I guess I tried to distinguish between, and it's semantics at this point, and maybe there's another term for the latter, the second kind of pride I just described. But yeah.
And Cap, what that brought up for me as you said that, and that was so good. There's a difference between being proud of and being prideful, right? Like proud of these things in your life or what you've accomplished or people, family, or definitely you see it all the time in kids like that. That's fine, but being prideful makes it a defining characteristic.
Yeah.
Of like this idea that pride is core to who I am, and that's when it could potentially veer into the dangerous spectrum that Kev just mentioned.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I also think that I fixed my echo, so I'm a little happy about that. But
You're
I
proud.
think
You're proud of yourself, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I am. I'm very proud of
Yeah.
myself. Well, not if
Yeah.
you knew why it was messed up, but I'm
Oh,
proud of
okay.
myself. I turned my volume down at work and forgot to turn my volume back up, so
Oh.
I couldn't hear myself. But anyway, I think that to the point I was kind of making earlier that there are some things you should be proud of, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, Jameel, you're about to have a beautiful daughter. That's something you should be proud of. You know what I'm saying? If you grow up in a very low income environment and you get to a point of financial stability, you should be proud of that. I think that there's also a danger at times of being too humble, in a sense of like you never celebrate yourself. If you never take the time to celebrate and pat yourself on the back, and again, like you got to find that line. You shouldn't be, patting yourself on the back. If you ever seen Coach Carter, there's a scene where they blow a team out in the movie Coach Carter. It's a basketball movie, and the whole game they're like flexing on the team and talking all kinds of trash, and he gets to practice with them, and somebody makes he calls up a play in practice. He's like, "Yeah, I drew that play up. Yeah, that was me. That was all me." And then somebody was like, "Coach, your shoe untied," and he ties his shoe up, and he's like, "Look at that knot on that shoe. Give me a high five." And he like chastises the team like, "You guys are winning. Like, why do you have to throw it in their face so much that you're winning?" So drawing that line between, okay, this is an accomplishment, but in the same token, like circumstances can change, and I can be right back where I begin at. And I see it a lot. I see it very often on social media, actually, where people are constantly like talking down on people when they get out of the situation that they were once in. They begin to talk down on people who are currently in that situation still, or going through that situation currently. So, like for example, someone who may have struggled with singleness and loneliness and stuff and single, they get married and they're just like, "Oh, all these single girls just want to do blah blah blah." And it's like, sis, you were just single, bro. You were just single. You know what I'm saying? A few years ago, like you can't do that. So I think that finding that line, that balance, kind of what my bro AB says right here, pride exists on the can. I thought it continue. Oh, look at these SAT words, man. Y'all about to make me go get my master's degree on this show, man. But to that point, I think that's how you draw that line, and that's a good transitional question, cuz. So thank you for that, and I'm sorry because he said his brother is Jabri, so my bad. It's all the J's. My bad. I knew you. My bad, cuz. It's all love. But to the next point, what are some positive, you know, can pride be a positive thing? And if so, how? Like, what does positive pride look like? That should probably be the better way to phrase it. Not everybody at once.
Listen, I defer to Kev. I spoke last time, so move aside.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying, and what Jamil articulated about prideful being versus like pride. Would you say proud of, right? Prideful versus proud of. Yep, see, I didn't write that one down, but I remembered it. Yeah, I just think it goes back to that, and there's so many things that we should be proud of. And Reese, you just kind of hit the nail on the head in terms, like I think you described it as sometimes being too humble, right? Or which translates to maybe low self-esteem, or that's kind of what I thought of, or just like a lack of confidence in one's own worth or ability, or just kind of who you are and what you're worthy of. So yeah, I think that we should be proud of ourselves more. Like I'm proud of the fact that like I made it out the hood, only to come right back to the hood. I don't know if y'all heard my background, but I made it out, and then I came back, but intentionally, right? I had a choice in the matter. So but that was just a joke. But I'm proud of the fact that I was the first to graduate, or really go to college. And well, I don't think I was the first to go to college, but graduate from college, the first to get a master's degree. I had kids while I was married. I didn't stay married, but Caleb will stay married and my daughter Ava will stay married, but nobody was married before, right? So like, and my kids were confused because they were like, they thought kids could only be produced between two married people. They're like, oh, well, they're not married. Your parents aren't married. And it's like, and so I think I can be proud of the fact that I'm creating a legacy and I'm creating a paradigm shift when it comes to like my kids and the way they think, and it's countercultural and it's more productive for them personally and for society. Like, I'm proud of my parenting. I told myself, good job today. Like, I went to bat for my daughter, who we've been trying to get into a particular school here in the city, and we were just kind of getting the runaround. And I just had a conversation with God. I'm like, why is this, shouldn't be this tough? Like, it's time for Ava to go to school and she needs to be in a good school, Lord. So let's come on. Can we wrap this up? So, and within, like, literally within the hour, he wrapped it up, right? Literally. And so, like, I'm proud that I have the heart for my children that I have. And, that's all intentional. That's all been cultivated. It takes work, because I could have chosen another path based on my path and the disappointments I've experienced, the heartache, the pain, all that stuff. I could have had so many excuses for why I wouldn't be present in my kids' lives and promising and so on. But I'm proud of the fact that I stuck with it. But at the end of the day, y'all know me, like, I'm going to give the credit to God. There's no way on this green earth that I would have been able to assume the disposition I have apart from the grace of God, because life is hard. So whenever you overcome some difficulty, some tragedy, some trauma, then you should be proud and, give credit to God, give credit to the people who have been with you. I got a text message yesterday from someone, then I'll shut up. But she was like, basically, congratulations on your new position. And, take care of yourself. You're just as worthy of being cared for as the people you care for, as the people in your care. And so, it was Sister Kim, by the way. I'll just give her a shout out. Sister Kim, what's her, Upshaw? Yeah, she was Gunter Upshaw. Yeah. But yeah, man, like, it just takes people in the community. Like, even if they just send a text of encouragement, that added to my happiness. It added to my sense of worthiness, and it reminded me of the fact that I'm already approved of in God's sight. So anyway, I'll shut up. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. That's a perfect response, honestly. I don't even know if I had much of a follow up, but that's just true. There are just things that you should be proud of. But again, y'all excuse my smoke detector. I know I've been trying to mute myself to drown it out, but I move in 2 weeks and I refuse to change the battery. So, so I apologize about the beep. I'm gonna try to mute the comment, but the 9-volt batteries aren't as common as the double A's. So, but I think that there are some things that you just have to be proud of. And I think that for me, one thing that I was kind of dealing with earlier this year, I think that in a sense for me personally, growing up Christian, and I've been in church since I was 11, I'm 33 now. I think that in the essence, I'm kind of I'm not high enough on my accomplishments personally. And sometimes I'm harder on myself for my failures than I should be. I think sometimes that's because of my Christian upbringing, right? Where you touch, what I'm saying, don't boast not. And what I'm saying, be humble, be meek, and all of those things. So that's something that as I've transitioned into adulthood, I've realized, it's okay to pat yourself on the back. It's okay to treat yourself every now and then. And it's okay to, if you work 40 hours a week, sometimes to go out and buy yourself a nice t-shirt or a nice pair of jeans or a nice dinner or something like that. You know what I'm saying? This last 2 years for my birthday, I've been single, and like, I was like, I don't really feel like planning nothing big, but I know darn well I am going to eat what I want to eat. And last year I asked Jameel's wife, and she cooked me the most lovely steak dinner for my birthday last year. And she would have done it this year if not for other circumstances. But like little things like that, it's like, I'm going to celebrate myself, and I'm going to do it in a way that I'm going to enjoy, not in a way that I think someone else wants me to, not in the way that I think that, not the life that I think that, my parents think I should live, not the life that my friends think I should live, not the life that anybody else thinks that I should live. This is how I want to celebrate myself. This is how I want to celebrate my birthday, and I've been very conscious to do that for the past few years. Rather than being like, my birthday's coming up, I got to do something that I think everyone's going to enjoy. No one has to enjoy that but me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a celebration of me in that moment. So I think in those moments, it's okay to have some pride in yourself. But again, like, no one likes that super boastful, super loud. That guy, you know what I'm saying? That guy is just like over the top with it.
And and I think it's interesting, right? Like, and look, my bias as well is around sort of being humble, and that's because of a multitude of factors. But I also admire people that can stand up and say, like, listen, this is what I've done. And I am proud of that for myself. I want to celebrate it, and I'm not going to wait for somebody else to toot my own horn. I want to I want to toot it myself. So I think that is absolutely an admirable quality, especially for those of us who are black and brown and we don't see ourselves celebrated enough. And to tell the stories of success and to create that as an atmosphere for others to emulate becomes really important. Uh, Reese, I think you and I had spoken about this before, and it's interesting because Herb and I actually had a conversation about this idea of the imposter syndrome too, and these thoughts of we don't deserve the successes that we have, and sometimes pride, or at least the behaviors that go along with pride, can be really helpful in reminding ourselves why we've gotten to the places that we've gotten to, right? Like, it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't an accident. No one's going to wake up tomorrow and be like, yeah, you that job, you should have never gotten it in the first place, and we're going to take it away. Like, those things are a result of the accomplishments that you've had. So you need to look back at times and reflect on, yeah, I ran this, I knocked this out the park, I did a really good job. I do this better than anybody else in my class. And reminding yourself of those things becomes helpful to help to get away from and to say, like, all right, that pride, that imposter syndrome that's seeping in to my mind and seeping into my thoughts is not valid. What's valid is what I've done in the power that God has given me. If you're a believer.
And I think that one of if AB's still watching, one of his buddies, I was on one of his shows, and one of his buddies said that men, the things that men flex. He's called them the three B's. He said it's the men flex the bedroom, the billfold, and the basketball court. He said those are the three areas that like we flex about. But other than that, a lot of things become taboo, right? And that's kind of what was the goal when I came up with this idea of the show, to kind of like, no, let's talk about some of these taboo things. Like, I love to see a man post his kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love to see men out with his kids. Like, I love stories, not the divorce so per se for you, Kev. But like, I love to see the overcoming of that, to see the journey. I remember when we sat in that car for like 4 hours and chatted. You know what I'm saying? When it was fresh, and I see where you are now. That stuff I love. But I think stories like that are the ones that we hold in. But you get a new car, you telling the world about that. So I think that if we could try to shift this conversation and shift this narrative to not just the materialistic things that people see, tell that story about how you overcame it. Tell about how, you grew up in West Philly or Fresno, that we grew up in Richard Island, and, being able to distinguish between gunshots and fireworks by age 4 and 5, and, what I'm saying, running into the house because they're shooting outside when you out trying to play tag or whatever. Like, those stories are major when you get to the point where it's like, yo, like, I don't got no record. I've never been shot, never been robbed. Like, that is something that I am proud of. And for a long time in my life, I was ashamed. Like, going to high school, people used to be like, oh, you must be from the suburbs. No. And I used to be really offended by that. And like, wow, how dare you say that I'm from the suburbs? Like, and it wasn't until maybe like 2013, honestly, where I realized how much of a blessing, how much of a testimony that is, how much of an accomplishment that is. That you hear it all the time in church. Praise God, I don't look like what I've been through, and that is like something that you should be proud of. Like, I shouldn't be hanging my head because I'm able to enunciate, because I don't have a criminal record, because I, what I'm saying, don't have stories about getting so super duper high or failing drug tests and all of those things like that. That's okay. Like, I still grew up in the hood, and a few months ago we did do an episode. It was called Surviving Philly, And I had a couple of guys with similar backgrounds to that, where it's like, we grew up in these areas, but we don't have like the trap boy story or the going to jail story and things like that. And how at times it seems like that's frowned upon. But no, like you should be proud about that. So share those stories about, yeah, I might have been divorced, but I'm still here for my kids. Because if you weren't here for your kids, they darn sure would be talking about you. If you weren't taking care of your business, they darn sure would be talking about you. If you fell in, they darn sure are going to be talking about you. So share that story. Like, yeah, I went through a divorce, but my kids still love me. My kids know who I am. I still have a functional relationship. Like I know if you talk to me privately, I probably complain a little bit more about my kids' mothers in general than I should. But they're amazing. Like they are. Like let me publicly say that both of my children have amazing mothers. But for me to not be with either one of my kids' mothers, I think I'm a damn good father. You know what I'm saying? In spite of what's going on between me and my kids' mothers. And that's something I'm proud of with myself. For some of the things I've had to overcome in my life, for me to be where I am right now, I'm very proud of myself. And it took me a while. And Kev, you said something earlier. You used the word self-esteem, right? And I think that self-esteem and pride are very, very, very closely interlocked, right? Where like people with low self-esteem tend not to be as proud of their accomplishments. And just because you're flaunting, or sometimes people with low self-esteem tend to flaunt things to make it seem like that they're better than what they really are, right? So, I remember I had a guy one time ask me to pay for his ticket to some event. And the ticket was like $30, and I'm talking to him. He was like, "Yeah, like I didn't know who else to ask for the $30 because I drive a Lexus, and I don't want people not knowing that I couldn't afford a $30 ticket." And I'm like, "Bro, I don't care." But like I see that thought process often, where it's like, this is the lifestyle that I put out here, so I want everyone to know, so everyone to believe that this is what my lifestyle behind closed doors is. And it's okay if you are not the finished product yet. And if there's one thing you don't remember, if you don't remember anything else from this conversation, I want you guys to remember it is okay if you are not the finished product yet. It is okay if you stumble. It is okay if you get derailed from what your goals is. I think Langston Hughes has the poem, hold fast to dreams, because if dreams die, life's a broken-legged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, because if dreams go, life is a barren field. Frosted with slow. You're never, ever, it's never too late to pursue your goals. It's never too late to pursue your dreams. And it's cliche, but God's timing is really perfect timing, right? And in due time, your testimony, everything that you're going through right now is building that testimony. And I beckon you guys, when you get that testimony, don't hold it in. Share it. Help somebody else so they don't have to struggle for the amount of time that you do. But oftentimes we go through the struggle, we get to the top, and then we don't pull anybody up with us. We hold it in. We share, we hold it, we keep it secret. And what we go through, we get too ashamed of it. So, all right, my rant is over.
And one thing I'd add to there too, because I think, and I wish I would have thought about this earlier, this association between pride and shame. And look, if there are things from that, whether it's criminal background or you are repairing relationship with your kids, or you don't have the finances that you want to have, all those things that are traditionally associated with shame. Um, Sometimes just being alive and here and in the fight is something to be proud of, right? Like those stories are real. And look, brother, sister, whomever, if you got through and you're here to keep on fighting and keep on swinging, then I'm proud of you, right? Like that's a real piece. And I want to make sure that when we talk about the abundance of pride being problematic, the opposite of that shouldn't be shame and wallowing in it. And I don't want you to think that that's a space that you should be staying in and you need to be captive to those past experiences and those past things that you might deem as failures or missteps. They make you who you are today. So I do want to encourage people that regardless of what your story is, being here today is something to be proud of, because many of us have gotten through just by the skin of our teeth. And there are a lot of people who didn't. So that's something that if no one told you that today, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, as you guys are speaking, I thought about Caleb. So as you know, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Yeah. So as you know, Caleb's, he's handsome like his dad. And so he has, I'm bald now, by the way.
Caleb's
But
much more handsome. Don't take
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Even when I was, he's even more handsome than I was when I was his age. So he's smarter than I was when I was his age. But that's something that, Anyway, so I thought about him though, because like he's always been this mild, kind of meek kind of kid, but people compliment his hair all the time. He has like this head full of curly hair, and like they're these like just well defined, fluffy curls, effortless, no product needed. And so it's like, he let that go to his head. He was like, yeah, my hair is, because he's 11 now, so, and he's in middle school. He's in the sixth grade. Yeah, look at my hair. I said, Caleb, let other people say that, right? But as we're talking tonight, and as I'm seeing comments like from your cousin, like I don't even want to mess up his name, but the other Jabril, right? But yeah, like I'm seeing comments, and it's like, okay, like our community has been so downtrodden, right? And Reese mentioned Langston Hughes, and it made me think of Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You can trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Like there's this sense of pride almost that we need to have in order to overcome the degradation and the discrimination and the doubts and the fears of people who have set themselves against us, essentially, whether intentionally or unintentionally or inherited, right? But I think my conversation with Caleb moving forward should more so be like, okay, son, like I think of like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you say, it's why you say it. And so as we kind of think about pride, it's really a matter of the heart, right? It's your motive behind why you said what you said. Are you saying this to encourage yourself? If that's the case, then fine. Right. If you need it a little uplifting, as scripture talks about encouraging yourself, and you want to look at some of the attributes and qualities that God has given you, you want to look at the strength you have that you've used to overcome. Like, yeah, I think that's fine. But if it's more like, yeah, look at my hair, I have the best hair, I'm going to get all the girls. Nobody, I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like that's going in the wrong direction with it. I think, but that's just my personal opinion. But there's this like delineation or this fine line. And I think you can best determine whether something is prideful or proud of when you ask the question, or when you remind yourself it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you think, it's why you think it.
Yeah, and to Mill's point, shame, real quick, and I'll give you the floor in a second. To your point of shame, I know that there are times where I have really close friends who sometimes I feel like, and I didn't become conscious of it until this year. I have close friends, and one day they were talking to me, and they were like, "Yeah, I did blah blah blah. I didn't want to tell you because I thought that you were gonna. I told you so, me. Or I thought that you were gonna talk negatively about me." And at first, I'm like, "Why?" And I thought about it, and I said, "What am I exuding that made this person believe that my response would be one to shame you?" So now I'm very conscious, and I had a situation where a few months ago where I was kind of like warning someone not to do something, and they did it anyway, and whatever I warned them about happened, and I remember they told me the story, and I'm like, well, mistakes happen sometimes, and you learned your lesson, and we're just gonna move by it. And they were like, no, I told you so, no shaming, no nothing. I was like, nah, mistakes happen, and we're gonna move by. You learned the lesson from what it is. You know not to do it again now, right? And we're off it. And I think that's the growth that my personal journey has put me on. And to your point about the kids, Kev, my daughter, I guess her sister tell her that she talks too much. So I'm driving. Actually, I was driving to Jameel's house last week, and she was like, "Yeah, they always tell me I talk too much in the car." I was like, "Baby girl, there's nothing wrong with not being silent. You just have to be tactful when you use your voice." I was like, "But I don't want you to ever feel like you can't speak up. I don't want you to ever feel like someone's silencing you. But just be mindful." Like to your point about the hair, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a way to do it. There's a way to use it. And I was like, you don't want to always make people repeat themselves and ask the same questions over and over again and just saying, huh? Like, but don't let them silence you either, baby girl. Like you're a queen, you have a voice, let it be heard. And that was something that I had to be mindful of. As a parent, and again, like that's something I'm proud of because in that moment I could have been like, girl, you do talk too much. all right, we at Uncle Millhouse now. You know what I'm saying? But I took that as a teaching moment and used that moment to encourage her, to uplift her with something that she was obviously, expressing to me. So, yeah, Mill.
Yeah, and a couple of quick things. And I think one of a way that might be helpful to differentiate healthy self-esteem versus pride is the things that you're proud of. Always ask yourself, who am I without it? And your answer should always be just as significant, just as important. There's no one thing in your life that makes you who you are, right? So when something becomes the defining factor, or you start to believe it is your defining factor, challenge yourself there to say, like, all right, I'm starting to veer too much into this because I'm making it overrun the essence of who I am, right? So always make sure that you understand yourself behind beyond that. And then the other piece is like who's around you. Um, and you can't just surround yourself with hype people, right? Like if everybody in your corner is going to back you no matter what you do, and you don't have anybody that's like, hey, listen, that's not good, like, or it's somebody that's going to give you real, true Hollywood truth about yourself, like then you really might need to check your circle, right? Like I have plenty of people around me who they'll say it and I'll say it, like they won't ever let my head get too big, right? Like, we're like, yeah, no, yeah, right? Like those things are important to have in your corner, because those people who can help keep you grounded and give you authentic, real feedback that's not hating, right? People are giving you feedback out of love and out of care. That's what becomes important, because I need people to tell me like, yeah, I was talking to somebody one time with my wife, and somebody else walked up next to me, and I just ignored the one person I was talking to and just started talking to somebody else. And my wife hit me on the shoulder like, "Yo, you just ignored that person." I was like, "No, I didn't." She was like, "No, you just stopped talking altogether to change direction somewhere else." And I had to remember that, and I had to go apologize because my wife let me know that I did it. So who are the people that are giving you feedback out of love because they care about your betterment? Not because they use you as a measuring stick, which is really important. If you have people around you who are using you as a measurement stick versus people who just want you to be the best you that you can be, it's going to change the conversations you have, and it can change your ability to be receptive to that feedback.
And Kev, I know you said a quote to me. I don't even know if you remember it. It was something like comparison is the root of something. Was it? Do you remember
All
it?
unhappiness. I got that from Dr. Jameson. Yeah, comparison is the root of all unhappiness, right? I think, to Mill's point, and I appreciate you, Rush Brothers, because I can name specifics about how you have cultivated and embodied pride in your own lives. I remember we were hanging out like in Manioc somewhere, a group of us. I think Herb was there. A bunch of us were there, and Mill pulled me to the side, and he was like, man, I apologize for not being there for such and such and such and such. And I'm like, I didn't know where it was coming from, because I felt like I know that Mill is a person, if I need something, I can call him and he's going to respond. He's going to show up. So I'm not about to criticize Mill or even hold anything against him for not doing anything, because he's one of the rare brothers I can call and say, if I need anything, I'll just call him and he'll show up. And so, but I think it's that humility and even probably a sense of wishing he could have done whatever that drove him to make that statement. But pride won't allow you to make that statement, right? Pride might, be more like what Jay-Z said, like my presence is charity. It's like, what? And so it's like, and then with Reese, like one time I showed up and, I was kind of lit at Reese crib one time. And this was a while ago, a long time ago, way before this new role. And so, yeah, I was just lit, and Reese was concerned. Like usually Reese turn up with me. I'm like, yeah, Reese, we about to turn up. And he's like, Kev, are you okay? I'm a little concerned. And, I think, like that took, I think I was prideful in that moment, actually, because I probably wasn't okay. But, I wanted to be okay in his eyes. But I'm just saying, like, these brothers, these Rush brothers, they're real. And, I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Reese, for having me on the show.
This is an amazing time, man. I can't wait to rewatch the episode myself. I think
Yeah, there's a big boogie in your nose, man. You're gonna see it the whole time.
me myself, don't do that.
No, I'm just kidding, bro.
No, but just as we get ready to wrap up, just give me any final thoughts that you might have on the subject, and if you want to let the people know where they can find you, just put it in there.
Yeah, I don't have much to say outside of like, listen, you're worthy of celebration, and I don't want anyone to take that away from it. But just as worthy of you as you are of celebration, you're worthy of getting better at the same time. So don't let people say that you're not good enough, but also at the same time, don't let people say that you've reached the best that you can be. And pride at times can steal that perspective that I can get better. So never exist in either end of those extremes, and keep on striving and keep on fighting, because that's what life is about. And no one told you today, I love you, and so does God. Who I get that from? Like, is that Pastor? I love you, and so does God. I don't know.
Pray for me, and I'll pray for you.
Oh my gosh.
And that's my big brother right there, man. Jameel Rush. You can follow him on Instagram at his name. He's that exclusive. He'll have a blue check mark next week next to his name. So
I was thoroughly confused. I was like, I didn't put my hand on it. Where'd that come from?
That's humility. He ain't put his own. I put my own handle. I still struggle with that pride.
I don't got no shows for y'all, man. Listen, I just pop up in Reese comments. That's where you see me.
Kev,
Yeah, man. I would just say, always examine your own motives and figure out, why you're doing what you're doing, why you're saying what you're saying. I think as we get in touch, like Mill mentioned, being self-aware earlier, as we get in touch with our true selves, we'll be able to determine, whether we're leading with pride or humility. And nobody else can determine that for us. That's between us and the Creator. But yeah, man, I think a good motive to have in life's endeavors and pursuits is love, right? Even if you're getting better because you're intentionally getting better for yourself, like I think connected to that needs to be like, okay, how can my better self be a blessing to other people? How can my better self more wholeheartedly, more with more dedication and fervor and commitment and empathy serve humanity? So just think about your motive. But if it's I just want to shine, like I just want to shine, like you gotta. That's probably pride. Yeah. And the root causes of it can be any number of things, but I think to Mill's point, you just kind of limit yourself if that's all you're living for, because it kind of stifles growth and getting better, and it stifles opportunities to help other people be their best selves.
that's great. And my final thoughts on the subject are mental health is real, right? And I think that let me take your name off, Kev. Mental health is real. And mental health runs very rampant, I think, in the Black community. So I'm going to put my plug in now. Go to therapy, right? Talk to someone. Talk to someone about these self-esteem issues. Talk to someone about the times you've been shamed. Talk to someone about the accomplishments that you want to do that you haven't accomplished. The sense of I'm a failure that starts to set in as you progress through life, as you start to get older. Talk to someone about it. Get a therapist. Black men, we all need therapy. And tell somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like don't tell. You don't have to go into the details about what it is that you're talking about in the therapy sessions, but you can say, "Oh, if someone invites you, I can't make it that day. I got therapy." What therapy? That's literally how Jamil got me to go because I was like against it, and he was like, "I go," and I was like, "Well, if my brother go, then I must not be." You know what I'm saying? I can go, and that's how we, break those stigmas. So talk to someone. I have a very close friend of mine who had a death in his family earlier this year, and Like the next week, he reached out and said, "Yo, I really need to be around, my friends." And that was one of the strongest gestures I've ever seen in my life. And the group of us, Jameel, you were there. I think Kev, you were there as well. We got together within like 48 hours, like a good 10 or 12 of us got together, and we didn't do anything special. We legit just hung out with them. And I told him that night, I said, that was one of the strongest things I've ever seen someone do. It was just reach out and say, I need to be around people I don't want to be around. I don't want to be by myself right now in this time of grief. So don't carry it alone. You spend your entire life identifying close friends, close family members, calling people brother and sister. When you need them, call on them to play the role that you have identified them to be in your life. So those are my takeaways. And be proud of yourself if you accomplish something. I love you too. I love y'all too. Thank y'all, man. This is great. I don't got nothing else to say. I'm gonna sign off now. We will be back in 2 weeks, talking about this subject from a woman's perspective. I have the lovely Katia Whitaker joining me for that discussion. And I have another young lady who I haven't gotten the confirmation yet, so I won't say her name that I'm trying to get on. And we'll be talking about this from a woman's perspective of what they see in us as men, from a prideful standpoint. So, y'all, Kev, you unmuted. You want to say something?
Oh no, my bad. I was just hoping, that you would have us on again at some point. I mean, I can't speak for Jameel, but obviously y'all shared his sentiments earlier, and he felt some kind of way as well. So yeah, just invite me back, man.
Your name got to be your name got to be Yak Yak to get back on.
Frank was good. My boy Frank, man. I just gotta give him a shout out. I think Frank is coming on next month, so
Frank's.
Yeah, I'll have
Frank. Hey, Frank, I called you, man. I know you called me back. I missed your call.
Hey, Kev, I'm gonna update my quote that says, "You spoke, they shouted." So
just give me credit. That's all.
Yeah, I would love to,
because I'm proud of my quotes.
I love to have y'all back on, man. So we definitely can do this again, man. I love y'all. I'm gonna sign off now. My food is at the door, so I'm gonna end the live. Then we'll get my food, but y'all can stick around and chat. So, all right, we out.
Okay.